Oh, hello. Welcome back to Wayside School Gets a Little Stranger, Chapter 25, Guilty. Some of the children were working in their workbooks, others were reading in their readers, and still others were computing on their computer. Miss Noggard looked from one to the other. Eeny, meeny, miny, Mauricia, she thought. Mauricia was stamping a stamp. Mauricia, said Miss Noggard, will you come here, please? Mauricia walked to the front of the room. Yes, she said cheerfully. Don't yes me, young lady, said Miss Noggard. You know what you did. Mauricia looked back at her teacher. What did I do? She wondered. Miss Noggard waited patiently. Everyone was guilty of something. I don't do anything, did I? Thought Mauricia. I've been good, I think. Unless she found out about that dictionary page I accidentally tore. No, she couldn't know about that. It happened before she even got here, and I don't think anybody saw me do it. I didn't do anything, she said. I probably should have told Mrs. Jules about it, she realized. But it wasn't even my fault. I was looking up how to spell journey for my journal, and the page just ripped all by itself. It is one thing to do something wrong, Mauricia, said Miss Noggard, but when you do, you should admit to it. We all make mistakes, but when you lie about it, you make matters much worse for yourself. Mauricia nodded as if she tried to figure out what to do. If Miss Noggard knew she tore the dictionary page, then of course she should admit to it, but there was no way Miss Noggard could know. That was impossible. I don't know what you mean, she smiled innocently. I didn't do anything wrong. She smiled at her teacher again. Miss Noggard stared at her a long moment and then said, Will you please bring me the dictionary? The smile dropped off of Mauricia's face and fell on the floor. The dictionary lay on top of the bookcase. Mauricia numbly went after it. How could she know? She wondered. It's impossible. Maybe she just wants to look up a word. She carried the heavy book back to Miss Noggard. Thank you, Mauricia, said Miss Noggard, flipping through the pages. I need to look up the word journey. Mauricia couldn't take it any longer. I ripped it, she cried out. I tore the dictionary. I'm sorry, I don't even know how it happened. I was just turning the page, really. Maybe pages only have a certain amount of turns in them, like 999. Then when you turn the page for the 1000th time, it will rip, no matter who turns it. Miss Noggard sadly shook her head. I'm very disappointed in you, she said. Not only did you vandalize the dictionary, but then you lied about it. I thought I could trust you, Mauricia. I guess I was wrong. I'm a horrible person, Mauricia agreed. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me, said Miss Noggard. It's not my dictionary. It belongs to the class. Mauricia had to stand in front of the class and tell them she was sorry. Then, since nobody would ever be able to use that page again, she had to read it aloud to the class. She struggled through the difficult words like journalism and judicious. Speak up, Miss Noggard had to keep reminding her. And everyone needs to pay close attention because there will be a test on this when Mauricia is finished. Hey, that's not fair, complained Jason. We didn't rip the dictionary. Why should we be punished? It's not punishment, said Miss Noggard. It is for your own good. Since you can no longer use that page, you need to memorize it. Thanks a lot, Mauricia, griped Jenny. When Mauricia finished reading it, Miss Noggard made her turn the page over and read the back side of it too. But I only ripped the front, said Mauricia, not the back. She finished, then returned to her seat, angry and upset. She wasn't angry at Miss Noggard. Miss Noggard was just being fair, she thought. But there was only one way Miss Noggard could have known about the torn page, she realized. Somebody in the class must have seen her tear it and then tattled on her. She looked around the room, from Dee Dee to Todd to Terrence to Joy. She didn't trust any of them. One of her friends was a no-good, dirty, double-crossing snake in the grass. We're going to go ahead on, and chapter 26 is Never Laugh at a Shoelace. This is a shoelace, said Mac. Everybody laughed. Mac was standing at the front of the room, holding his shoelace in his hand. He felt like a fool. What a fool, said Allison. It all started a minute earlier when Miss Noggard asked, Who has something for show and tell? But first you should know something about Mac. Mac's favorite subject in the whole world was show and tell. He loved it, especially when he was the one doing the showing and telling. He often looked through garbage cans on his way to school, in search of stuff to show and tell about. Once he found a really gushy love letter. It was covered with something that looked like peach slime. But that wasn't what made it gushy. The gushy part was that it was what was written in the letter. Mac read it to the class with lots of feeling. So while Miss Noggard said, "Who has something to share for show and tell?" Mac reacted without thinking. His arm shot up like a rocket as he almost jumped out of his seat. "Oh, oh," he groaned. Then he remembered something. "I didn't bring anything for show and tell." Miss Noggard heard him. Before he could lower his hand, she called on him. And that was how he ended up with his shoelace dangling from his hand like a dead worm. "It came from my sneaker," he said. He took off his sneaker and held it up too, next to his shoelace. "See, you stick the laces through these little holes here. Then you tie it in a bow. That keeps it from falling off your foot." "Duh," said Dana. "We know what a shoelace is," said Paul. "I've been tying my shoes since I was 2 years old," said Joe. Calvin and Bebe booed. "Sit down," said Jason. "You're boring." The kids in Mrs. Jewell's class never used to be so mean, but they've been getting grumpier and grumpier ever since Miss Noggard took over. "Put your shoe back on," said Mauricia. "Your foot stinks." Mac felt terrible. Miss Noggard smiled. "Go on, Mac," she said. "We are all very interested to hear what you have got to say." He tried to think of some way to make a shoelace interesting. "Shoelaces are real important," he said. "There was once this guy. He was a real fast runner. His name was Howard. Howard Speed. He was the fastest runner in the world. But this was way back before shoelaces were invented. And so, every time Howard raced, he ran right out of his shoes." Nobody seemed very impressed. But then Rondi asked, "Did that hurt his feet?" Mac shrugged. "I guess," he said. Once I stubbed my toe on a rock," said Stephen. "It hurt." "Yeah, and you didn't run as fast as Howard Speed," said Mac. "He ran so fast that if he kicked a rock, he would break his toe." "Did he have blisters?" asked Todd. Mac smiled. "Man, he had the biggest blisters you ever saw in your whole life. Bleeding blisters." "Oh," Joe and John said together, "with pus oozing out." "Ew, gross," said Dana, wide-eyed. Everyone was paying close attention to Mac now. "Wherever Howard went," said Mac, "he left a trail of bloody footprints." "Cool," said Terrence. "And so they had to invent something to keep Howard's sneakers on his feet," said Mac. "First they tried nailing his shoes to his feet." "Yowza!" Bebe exclaimed. "Why didn't he just use Velcro?" asked Jason. "Howard lived in Africa," explained Mac. "Velcro trees only grow in Australia." So then they tried gluing his shoes to his feet, and that seemed to work, but then whenever he took off his shoes to take a bath or something, he'd peel off a layer of skin. "Yuck-ola!" shrieked Allison. But finally Thomas Edison invented the shoelace, and Howard never ran out of his shoes again. "Did he win all his races after that?" asked John. "Well," said Mac, "the next race was for the championship of the whole world. Howard got off to a real fast start. It looked like he would win for sure. But shoelaces were still a new invention, and Howard wasn't quite used to them yet. Right before he reached the finish line, his shoelace came untied. He tripped over it and fell flat on his face. He broke his nose, lost all his teeth, and had 2 black eyes." "Wow," said all 3 Erics together. "So remember," said Mac as he held his shoelace high in the air, "never laugh at a shoelace." Everyone applauded. And stay tuned for chapter 27 next time. Bye-bye.